everybody. I'm back. It's Dakeem Lyles, and welcome to another episode of Casting Directors Say Word, where each month I spotlight an amazing casting director, big and small, in the industry, because a lot of what we do as casting directors is misunderstood or not understood at all. And I really hope that this series can shine a light on all the wonderful, hardworking casting directors that I know and don't even know, but I do know that help bring other people's projects to a beautiful reality. And today I have another amazing guest and another amazing casting director. Introduce yourself.
Well, hello, I'm Stephanie Klapper, and I'm here in New York City. And I cast, hello.
And what kind of things do you cast?
Well, I was going to answer that, and then I realized I should let you ask me that. I cast a lot of theater, both Broadway and off-Broadway. I cast regionally. I cast independent films, some TV, a lot of different streaming things, some podcasts, and I also cast things for orchestras when they need performers to do things within an orchestral situation.
Oh, wow. Cool. I love that. You're so well-rounded. Now, okay, how'd you get started?
I thought I was going to be a professional musician. Mm-hmm. I had plans to tour all over the world as a flutist and solo. And when it came time to apply to college, at the very last minute, somebody said, gee, you seem to know a lot about movies and actors. You should check out film school. And I thought that sounded like a really fun thing to do. And I changed my entire career path in about a minute. So I went to film school and decided that I loved watching movies. I loved learning about movies, but I loved working with actors, but I wasn't necessarily the best in the film world at making movies. Mm-hmm. So I got into a program at SUNY Purchase where I went to college in drama studies, and I helped create a drama studies program with an emphasis in directing.
Wow, and nice.
It was pretty incredible. And my first job out of college, I got to work on a Broadway show as assistant to the producers. And along the way, I got to meet the casting department who was helping them cast the show. And that sounded really interesting, but it wasn't for several years that through a chance meeting with the director in an elevator of my parents' building, he said, you direct a lot, you should check out casting. And I thought, what a great way to meet actors for my own projects. And this artistic director gave me a chance. And I thought it would just be a short job, and it's become a lifetime. So I love it.
See, and I feel like when I hear everybody's story, even mine, it's always about, sort of not so much stumbling into this, but never really not necessarily being focused on this and kind of being pulled at our hearts, basically, with a passion into this, and then having that one person sort of just, even if it's just to make a suggestion of it, or just to give you that chance that really opens the door. And I think that's great, because everybody that I speak to, everybody's story has a similarity to it, even though it's different. Like you coming from a place of loving film and being passionate about that. And that's the same place that brought me into casting and just this industry, just my love and passion for film and filmmaking, and maybe realizing I might not be the best filmmaker per se, or that's where my craft would lead me, but finding another way into it and finding something that's really passionate. I love that. That's how you. And I went to SUNY Binghamton, so we weren't too far away from each other. Now,
before you ask that, I was just going to say about observing what you're talking about, how I feel that casting is something that it finds us in a sense. That's a similarity I find with casting people, and I also find that casting people have huge hearts, and that this profession allows us to give that forward in that way.
You know what, I love that it finds us, because that's why it's so hard to let it go. There are many times in my life where I've questioned, is it time for me to stop casting? Am I going to do anything else? And every time I pose that question, there's always something in the back of me saying, you can't do anything but this, Dakeem. Why are you kidding yourself? And for you, I would love to know, like, you've been doing this for a while, just like me. Why casting? What about this side of the industry really do you love so much that's kept you in it? Because it's not easy. And it's no. That taught us how to do it.
No, it's interesting, because I think that a lot of us say we love giving people opportunities, and there's no question helping people to shine and helping them realize their passions, I think is something we all do in our way. And I have to say, I love the craft of casting. I think that sometimes people don't understand that it really is a fine art, how we think about casting and putting things together. And although we don't make the decisions, we do see the project in a way through the eyes of our creative team that helps us to help them to find what they need. And it really is an art form. And I think that it's about the small pieces that coming together. And I love that detail.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I love the creative. It's constantly creative, even when there's certain aspects of this that are repetitious or like, oh, we've done this before. There's still this creative side that is always making the wheels in your brain turn. And that's what I love about it too. Now, you talk about misunderstanding. That's one of the reasons why I'm doing this, because, there are a lot of people who've come up to me all the time. They're like, Nikki, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I cast TV commercials and I'm a casting director. And they're like, what is that cast? It's almost like they don't even know what the word means. And so I wanted to ask you, like, what's one misunderstanding about what we do that just personally drives you crazy, or you wish people would understand a little bit more?
Well, I think they don't always understand that we're the facilitators, but we're not the decision makers.
Right.
I think some teams want to hear our thoughts, but we don't make the final decision. And I think that's a really important thing to push forward in that way, that I'd love more people to understand that I'll say it again, we're facilitators, we're not decision makers.
Yeah, just like when I hear like a reviewer of a movie say, yeah, the casting was so bad in this. And I was just like, we brought them and then they made the decision on their own. We didn't have a whip and was like, you're gonna pick this actor. That's not what we do. We suggest and they ask our opinion, but even the people, especially from the commercial side of it, like even when we make suggestions and they're like, hey, I agree with that suggestion, I like it, they still have to get that suggestion or that person approved. Now, we're in a very strange place right now in the industry. And, I always say that the pandemic really upended this industry and turned it on its end really quickly. And a lot of things happened and changed fast that became kind of permanent. And now we're kind of in that transition now with the strike and everything, where we are in another transition. What is your perspective on the current state of, where the casting industry is now? And what do you think like actors should understand about it like today, as opposed to,
Ooh.
2019 or even 2022?
Well, I think they need to understand that we're not all dissimilar, that we depend on each other, we need each other, we're here for each other. If we get opportunities to work, of course, we want them to be working. So I think I've been thinking a lot about the strike, also just the general attitude of some people saying, let the actors starve, let the writers starve. And it really concerns me, because that's not what our industry should be about, nor do I think most of us got in it with that being what we had in mind. So I would like moving forward for us to find better ways to help support each other in the endeavor that we're doing here, which is a creative one and a moneymaker. It's a business. But I think that if all of us wanted something was more traditionally business, I'm sure we all would have found other things to go into. And I think sometimes we're losing the reason that we all got into this profession. So with the strike, I worry about people staying around. I worry about people surviving. I worry about people's families, educations, eating. I'm very concerned right now.
Yeah, so am I. And I hope that, I hate to, I don't want to keep saying I hope people weather the storm, because that's easy to say and harder to do, and I hope that out of all of this, it kind of just brings us all closer together, so we're not so divisive. It's not so divisive. SAG actors are non-union people, and now we get this, but you guys aren't non-union, so good luck until you can get into I mean, we've all got to come together at some point and support each other.
Well, and I think when you were saying about the pandemic, I think sometimes people in commercials and film and TV were still able to work, and theatrically we weren't able to work. And I think people weren't always able to understand the trauma of that. Yeah. And I think what's happened now is we're all understanding the trauma across the board of what this means, because we cherish our jobs, and to suddenly have it not here and out of our control is really unfortunate.
Yeah, yeah. Now, Stephanie, you and I, we meet a lot of new actors, and new actors, I mean, people just out of school, but people just deciding to get into this business at any age. What do you think? What advice would you personally have for an actor who's just getting started in the industry? Like, what something like realistic advice to give somebody who just decided, I want to make this a career choice, but I really don't even know where to begin. Like, what would you tell them to
Well,
maybe
I think education is really important. And I think TV has a way of glamorizing the profession and making it look really easy. And it's not,
Mhm.
especially if it's something that one wants to do for the rest of their life. And I think that you have to really have a long game in place. So I think finding a class where you get to meet people and learn technique is really, really important. And I think that it puts you in the world of what you want to do. So I think if you want to be a lawyer, you don't just wake up one day and say, I think I'll practice law now. You go to law school. Same thing with medical school. Being a performer is the same thing.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree with that. You got to start. That's one of the things that drives me crazy about working with certain people in the industry is that you can tell they haven't educated themselves on what they're getting into. And I'm like, you've got to love it. You've got to have a passion for it. And then that passion should lead you into wanting to learn more about it, because it's going to be so much easier for people to navigate the highs and lows of this industry if they understand it as a business, as an artistry,
Mhm.
and as just an everyday pursuant of a career. And I love that you said that, one of the things that you want people to understand about the business is that we all are working together. It's so true, because I can relate to everything that actors go through, just because just like a job starts for them and then has a middle, it also has an end. And then at
Mhm.
that end, they almost have to go back to the beginning, looking for other jobs. Same thing with casting. We cast a project, and that project ends. And now, okay, where's the next casting project that I'm passionate about and I want to bring some other people along with? And, you know, you brought up the fact we were talking about how the industry has changed so much, and you and I have met and taught on the circuit through schools and stuff, and we were also talking about how different it is just to make connections in this industry, and
Mhm.
that brings me to networking, right? Because
Mhm.
I feel like it's so much harder now to build relationships within this industry, because everything is like this,
Mhm.
on a computer, and it's very rare that you get into in-person contact with people. So when it comes to networking, like, do you like to be contacted? How do you like to be contacted? And what really gets your attention? Like, what's something that's like, oh, I am going to read this, or I'm going to delete this, or just put it in a file, and if I need it, I'll go back to it later.
Great question. I prefer to be contacted when it's about something specific, if there's a specific project. And then through my website, there's a way to contact me. So that's how I prefer to do it. I think it needs to be an intelligent reach and well thought out.
Yeah.
If it's general, I feel like it won't get read as much as if it's specific. And I think when somebody does their research and knows the kinds of projects I do and why they would be right for those projects, those are the people I listen to.
Yeah, yeah, and have some empathy too when you're reaching out to people, and understand that they're a working person that you're reaching out to. And imagine if you're reaching out to them, how many other people are reaching out to them that same day, that same week, that same evening.
Well, and that brings me back to your earlier question about what I wish people could know about what we do, and something you touched on a little, which is, once again, we're in it together. Please don't approach us as though we're here as employees of yours,
Yeah,
because we're facilitators. Don't get upset with us if we don't answer. We may not have an answer right now, but we all have great memories and keep files of people that are of interest to us. And sometimes it takes years.
yeah,
So
yeah.
patience is truly a virtue, and kindness goes further than you realize.
Yeah, always be nice to that receptionist or person that's sort of the conduit, because you never know where that person might end up later, right?
You also don't know who's answering the phone.
That's right. That's right. Now, I have a bit of a controversial question for you, just because a couple of weeks ago and this week too, this has been coming up and people have been asking me about this. And it's the question of Phi Corps, and with the strike going on, I know there's somebody mentioned to me that with the new contract, they hear that Phi Corps SAG actors could lose their membership, especially if they're working in non-union jobs during the strike. And then that was new to me. What advice do you have when it comes to actors joining the union, not joining the union, being Phi Corps or not Phi Corps, or do you have an opinion of it at all?
I think and it's not a cop out, although it may sound like a cop out. I feel like it's a very personal decision.
Yeah.
And I don't really feel like I'm the person to tell them how to lead their lives in that way. Mm-hmm. I think that if somebody chooses to join any of the unions, if they really need to think about what that means. Are they competitive at this point? Mm-hmm. Or will they benefit from still doing non-union jobs to really strengthen their work? It's the difference between, do you go to a fancy gym like an Equinox, or do you go to a Y, and then if you need special things, you go to Equinox? Right. I don't know if that really works, but I think the idea is to do your time, and when you've earned it, I think, or there's a great opportunity. But I think to jump in once again, to go back to our training, it's really to thinking about the bigger picture and where the employment opportunities will be.
Yeah.
So that's how I think about it.
Now, I asked you what advice would you have for actors, right? But here's a question that I want to pick your brain about. What advice would you have to upcoming aspiring casting directors? Because, there's you and I, like, again, we got pulled into it. There was no school class that we could take. We were lucky that we got into this industry at a time when there was a way into it, in a way, right? Mm-hmm. You could go to an office, you could intern, you could meet casting directors and talk to them and let them know that you're interested. And now, again, because of where we are in the world and everything is sometimes on the computer, that's a lot more difficult. If I was an actor, if I was somebody and I was saying, I just love what you do, Stephanie, how do I where should I start?
Well, there are a few ways. One is the Casting Society of America actually has a training and education program now. Mm-hmm, and if you go to the Casting Society's website, you can learn about that. It's a pretty terrific program. And there are different types of programs there. If you're still a college student, there's a program through the Tepper semester at Syracuse University. Mm. And there, instead of doing a program abroad, you could do a program in New York City that's for credit, but you have to apply to it through the school. And that's a pretty terrific program also. So those are the two that I know of off the top of my head. Sometimes there are opportunities that are posted on entertainmentcareers.com. Sometimes Playbill, there are careers that are mentioned. Sometimes you may have met a casting person and you're really interested in learning more about what they do, but make sure your agenda is in the right place. But reaching out sometimes to a casting person you may have a relationship with, if they don't have something, they may be able to refer you to somebody else. So those are some ideas of how to get into this. But I really think you have to really make sure it's what you want to do, because it is hard work and it requires a lot of skills that people don't realize.
Yeah, it really does. I always tell people, make sure at least you take an intro to acting class, just so because you got to learn how to talk to actors. And, once you get into the casting process too, you got to develop a shorthand, because you can't spend an hour explaining something to them. You got to know how to talk to them so they get it quickly, so that you guys can work together and get what you need out of them. Because again, we all are rooting for them, right? Yeah,
but you also have to have office skills and research skills and be able to talk to people of all levels. And you have to be a good communicator. And it can't just be done on your computer, but you actually have to have conversations. Mm-hmm. And you have to think on your feet and be a great problem solver, to name a few of the qualities.
Yeah, that's I love it. Now, we're in this virtual self-tape world right now. I don't know how dense you're involved in that, because you still might be doing some in-person stuff too, but when it comes to like virtual and self-tape stuff, what's one thing you think actors should understand about just this whole new era?
I think it's really hard. Just like being in person is really hard. I mean, what I'm doing, a lot of my auditions, it's different versions of it. Some are the first step is a self-tape. Then there may be a Zoom component, and then there'll be an in-person for the final. And
Yeah,
I
wow,
think
that's a
that
lot.
it's a lot, but what I also try to point out to my clients is people are still learning how to jump between virtual Zoom and in person.
Yeah.
And it's about relating to people in all of these different ways, and also how you use your voice in all these different ways. And I think that what I'm trying to do on my side is enlighten my clients. And I think actors need to think about that too. How do you make those adjustments? Just like you make adjustments for doing film, doing TV, doing commercials, doing theater. You really have to be mindful about it. I think that be kind to yourself in terms of the number of takes you do. You can make yourself crazy. Don't make yourself crazy. We get it. It's as in the room, we're not looking for perfection. We're looking for where you can go with it. Do you have the right ingredients? But let go of perfection. And I know that's hard, and I am guilty of that. Which is why I could say try to be kind to yourself.
Because the imperfection is sometimes where the magic happens too.
And the humanity, yeah. It's about being human.
Exactly. And that's what a lot of people are looking for. And you just got to tap into what makes you human, the individual. Now, speaking of this whole, again, virtual world that we're in, when it comes to headshots, what do you think actors should understand about how we view them and how the part they play in our process? So
they're really important
about getting them together and what type of headshot that they'll know how we sort of use them to get them in the room.
Yeah, I mean, I really needed to look like the actor. I remember once I had an actor, and it was actually a director of mine had chosen this person's headshot from ones that had been sent to him. And he asked me to set up the person. We brought the person in. My director was so upset because this person looked nothing like his headshot. And that was very bad for the actor and for my client, who was really thinking this was the one. Yeah. So it doesn't. I'm sorry?
And for you too, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I know that happens sometimes, but so I give a little bit of a margin there, but I really want you to look like yourself and not have to give the margin in that way. Yeah. So I really think you need a good headshot. The actor really needs to invest in it. I know people say take one yourself. I guess if you're a great photographer, but I'm not I think that, that's like Dr. Heal Thyself. You need to I think it's a professional expense that you can find somebody great who doesn't have to cost gajillions.
Yeah, and it's doable. Like everything, you have to do your research, Now, and when you are accepting submissions and stuff, usually how many takes do you want from somebody if you're not specific about it?
I'm specific. I usually just want the one.
Yeah, that one.
And also, we don't have time. In most cases, time is of the essence. We may be seeing a lot of people, and we may have a very short amount of time. So one is really what I need.
Yeah.
Especially if we're doing multiple sides, then it's one for each side.
Yeah, because we don't have all the time to look at that. We look at every take. Let's just be clear.
And we don't have time to edit usually, or, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, make sure you label your takes right. That'll make it easier for us to organize, which will make it easier for you to be seen that much quicker, right?
Great advice. That's really smart.
It's been amazing talking to you. I got one more fun question for you now.
I love it. Go for it.
We've just this past weekend was this whole big Barbenheimer blowout where everybody was really excited about just the entertainment industry. I didn't get to partake in it, but what like film or show or TV or theater or performance that you've seen that you would love to recommend or just you really enjoyed lately?
Oh gosh, I have to catch up on a bunch, but I actually enjoyed this newest season of The Bear. I have to say, I thought it was really great. And season 1 was a tough act to follow. And I think they did such a smart job with it. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that last episode was really good. When Jamie Lee Curtis, that whole scene, that actor who plays the son-in-law, who was talking.
Brilliant. So brilliant.
Oh my God, his vulnerability. Then when he went back into the restaurant and he was.
Don't give it away. Don't give it away.
Right. But like, yeah.
No spoilers.
It was really good. And that last episode was beautiful and intense, and
It's a master class in acting. I really think it's so smart in what it does, and to feel that kind of sort of stress come off the screen, it's just so well done.
yeah, I like it. There were moments where I was like, that Kim, you're just watching the TV show. You're not in that kitchen with them. So
I had to watch Modern Family after just to cool down a bit and get
right, right.
a
Stephanie, thank you so much. Tell everyone how, just remind them again about your company and what you cast.
Sure. So I'm Stephanie Klapper. The company is Stephanie Klapper Casting. We have a website and an Instagram, and we cast theater and indie films and TV, and we cast really cool projects of all types. And we love to do streaming things as well.
And she's an amazing casting director. People, you get in the room with her, and trust me, you will sort of really feel relaxed enough to just feel like you're playing with a friend. And that's what you want, just to really be comfortable with someone in the room so that you guys can explore and have fun. And I'm really so thankful that you were able to join us this one.
This was incredible. Thank you for your generosity. You're just incredible.
Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you next month on another episode of Casting Directors Say What, Stephanie?
The best things in the world.
Thank you. I jumped the gun and said say what before her. So there you go. Bye everybody. See you next month.
Bye.